Hello everyone. My name is Elise. Welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing so good today. We are going to be looking at the books that I have bought last June in 2023 because this is a book haul revisit video, baby. And I'm somewhat excited and somewhat scared because this is the last month where I only have 1 year to look back on. Starting in July, I will now have 2 years worth of book hauls to look back on. So I'm going to enjoy the simplicity while I can. And I'm really excited to get into a lot of these books. Most of these books are translated. I think there's only 3 that are not. So that's very exciting. And I am curious to see just how many of these I have actually read. I haven't quite done them. I think actually the math is easy, so I just did it in my head. We'll see. So just a little bit of a recap of what these videos are if you haven't seen one before. Mostly I'm just trying to determine, have I read the books that I've bought previously or not? Because I want to be reading the books that I'm buying, and this is a way for me to prioritize some of my backlist if I haven't read them yet. In addition to that, I'm going to be talking a little bit about why I bought the book in the first place, like what drew me to it, or maybe even where I bought it. And then I'll also be either giving a really quick synopsis or a really quick review, depending on whether or not I've read it. So that's what you're going to see in this video. And let's go ahead and get into it because there's a decent amount of books here. So first one is a success, and that is Who Killed My Father by Edouard Louis. This is translated from the French by Lorin Stein, and it's published by New Directions, if I'm remembering correctly. This book I loved. It was in my favorite books of the year last year. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I did really love it. It's very slim. It's nonfiction, specifically about, well, the author is blaming the French government for his father's death. His father worked in manual labor, and that really destroyed his body. And his father also lived in poverty for the majority of his life, which impacted his health as well. So he is calling out specific people who passed specific legislature to pin his father's murder on them, essentially. Very scathing. It has a lot of good commentary on toxic masculinity and how that gets passed down throughout the generations. Just so many great things about this. The longer it sat with me, the more I've appreciated it. And I know it's a book that I will reread, especially because it is so slim. So yeah, loved it. I think it was on my anticipated releases for last year. And the thing that really drew me to it was the cover when I was looking up new releases from small presses, New Directions being an independent small press, although they're on the larger side for that. So yeah, really exciting cover. I loved it visually, and then read the premise and was like, I think that's for me. And it was. So that is Who Killed My Father. One read, excellent job for me. Next up, we have Bad Handwriting by Sara Mesa. This is translated from the Spanish by Katie Whittemore, and it's published by Open Letter. This one I have not read yet, and I'm holding it up. The ones I haven't read yet, I typically hold up, and because my TBR shelves are so close, and the ones I have read, which are in my basement and harder for me to get, I typically put the picture up. So that's your cheat sheet on how to know if I've read it or not. But this one I bought because I wanted to own all of the triptych that Katie Whittemore did for Open Letter. So the translator was allowed to select 3 works that they wanted to be translated in English, and they were going to translate them themselves. So Open Letter picks one translator a year for different languages that are being translated into English and allow them to pick 3 works to publish, which I think is such an interesting concept. So this was the last one I needed to pick up for the triptych that Katie Whittemore did, and that's why I picked this up. It is a short story collection, and it has 11 stories that are talking about themes of childhood and adolescence, guilt and redemption. Sounds very intriguing, and I'm happy to have it to complete that collection. And yeah, that is Bad Handwriting. Next up, we have another book I have not read, but this book I actually started reading last year and then had to soft DNF it, but I'll talk a little bit about why. This is Not Miami by Fernanda Melchior, translated from the Spanish by Sophie Hughes and also published by New Directions. So this is a collection of somewhat essays. They're like oral retellings. So like the factual integrity of them is a little wishy-washy, but that's kind of the point because this is a tradition of storytelling. I can't remember the name. I don't know if I'd be able to find it quickly, that the author is trying to utilize. So this one I picked up because I have heard great things about Fernanda Melchior, but her two previous novels that have been translated into English, I don't think would be for me. I have no doubt that they are very high quality, but I don't think the content is going to be something that I get a lot out of. But I thought that this could potentially be something that I do enjoy, so I picked it up. But as I have been saying lately, and maybe sound like a broken record at this point, I have really been struggling with short story collections, essay collections, anthology collections. Any type of shorter format collection I have just been struggling with to pick back up. Don't know why, but that's been the case. So I did start this one and a similar thing happened where I just had like no desire to keep picking it back up once I finished another story because there wasn't like a through line to keep me captivated. So I set it down for now, but it is a softie enough, so I do plan on coming back to it once I get my short story essay mojo back. But yeah, this is Not Miami. Still looking forward to reading it. Next up, we have a nonfiction title, Vagina Obscura by Rachel E. Gross, and this one's published by Norton. Have not read it. This one is all about the history of the vagina and about how the science and understanding of the vagina has changed over time, and also how the vagina and the anatomy of the vagina and the way that it works impacts the way that we understand all bodies in general today. So really excited to get to this. I first found this on my radar because I reviewed, it was nominated for a prize. What prize was it nominated for? I can't remember now. It was nominated for some prize in, I think science and technology nonfiction. Am I totally making that up? I have no idea. I think science and technology fiction, nonfiction. And this one really stood out to me in addition to a couple of others. But yeah, picked it up. Still want to read it. Definitely a contender. Next up, we have, another book. I think I might have bought this. I think I bought these at the same time at the same bookstore, which is Elliott Bay Book Company in Seattle. It's located in Capitol Hill, and it's a very big independent bookstore here, very popular. I also picked this one up at the same time that I picked up Vagina Obscura, and that is Venomous Lumpsucker. This is by Ned Beaumont and published by Soho. I have put this on a couple of TBRs already and haven't gotten to it yet. It is climate fiction about two different people. I think one is a scientist and one is a mining executive, and they are thrown together to try and pursue this venomous lumpsucker, which is supposed to be the most intelligent fish on the planet. But we're unsure if it's extinct or not. And they both have very specific reasons for wanting to prove that it's not extinct. So they go out on an adventure looking for a venomous lumpsucker. But along the way, they get involved in a much larger conspiracy. So I've heard great things. I want to read more climate fiction, and I just never do. So I really do need to get to this sometime soon. So that is Venomous Lumpsucker. And then we have, this one's kind of hilarious of why I have it. So we have Like a Sword Wound by Ahmet Altan, and it's translated from the Turkish by Brenden Freely and Yelda Turedi, and it's published by Europa. Now, I bought this one because I picked up Loving is Easier Than Dying, which I think was in my latest book haul revisit. I think I got that in May of 2023, not realizing that it was the third book in a quartet. So this is the Ottoman Quartet by this author, which is pretty well known and I think highly regarded. And so now I needed to pick up the first one in the quartet. This is the first one in order to eventually try to get to Loving is Easier Than Dying. So I do still have a lot of interest in getting to this, but I don't know if it's the smartest thing for me to start another series right now. I guess it might not be that bad. But this is following the eventual collapse of the Ottoman Empire. I think you're seeing that over the 4-book series and getting multiple POVs, I believe, throughout it as well. It's definitely an option, so we'll see. I'll need to think on it. Next up we have, another book that I have read, thank God, because there's only been one so far, and that is The Book of Eve by Carmen Boullosa. This is translated from the Spanish by Samantha Schnee and published by Deep Vellum. And this was my favorite book of 2023. I adore this book. I had it on my anticipated releases books for last year, because I do 3 of those videos a year, and I often do a lot of research on a bunch of small presses, mainly in the US, but I try and look at some other ones that I know in other countries as well and see what releases they're going to have for the year that I'm very interested in, because I do like to pre-order books if possible, if I feel like it's really going to be a good fit for me. And this was a book that I pre-ordered. I kept saying that it was my most anticipated novel of the year, and boy, was I right, and it delivered. It's so fantastic. It is a retelling of the book of Genesis from Eve's perspective, and it's told in like books, so the format really mirrors the Bible. It's got themes around language and truth and who owns the truth and like what even is the truth, and how the truth is connected to our like physical embodiment of ourselves. Really, really interesting stuff. It also has a lot of crazy world building in it, which is not something that I often experience because I don't read a lot of fantasy or sci-fi, which maybe has a little bit more world building. But yeah, so great. Highly recommend it to people who like religious commentary and are down for kind of a little bit more of an experimental ride. So love it, love it, love it. Highly recommend. Next, we have a short story collection, which is When the Hibiscus Falls by Evalina Galang. And this one is published by Coffee House Press. And I have this one because last year I had the Coffee House Press subscription. So I received all of the books that they were publishing for my specific subscription period. And this was one of them. This is 17 stories that follow the lives of Filipino and Filipino American women and their ancestors. Very excited to have this. Again, I have not been on my short story game as of late, which is why I have not picked it up yet, but I'm very excited to get to this when I am back into my short story era. So love it, happy to have it, have not read it yet. That is When the Hibiscus Falls. And we have 2 more. So penultimately, we have another novel that was on my anticipated releases list, and that is Demoiselles of Numidia by Mohamed, Leftah, translated by Laura Bernard. And this one is translated from the French. It's published by Other Press. And this one, I think, follows a Moroccan sex worker, which is what initially pulled me into it. Because I think I've said before on this channel, when I was in my undergrad, I studied abroad in Morocco, and I'm always trying to get more perspectives about sex workers. So this felt like a good combination of 2 things I have interest in. And that was really all I needed to be sold on getting this. Now, this is written by a man, and it's from the perspective of a woman. So we're gonna see how that turns out. That has been a little bit of why I've avoided this so far, but I have heard no one review this. So I don't even know if the representation is going to be good or not. So I might as well just read it and try and find out for myself. But yeah, that is Demoiselles of Numidia. Still looking forward to reading it. And then lastly, we have another short story collection, and this is Fresh Dirt from the Grave by Giovanna Rivero, and it's translated from the Spanish by Isabel Addy and published by Charco Press. And this one I think I picked up because it said that these were Gothic stories, and I think at the time I was really in the mood for some of that. I don't often read a lot of Gothic stuff, but I do really like how atmospheric it is, and sometimes that just hits like nothing else can hit, and that was the main thing that drew me into it. But it also says that it's engaging with folk tales but putting kind of like a sci-fi bent on them. That sounds intriguing as well, and I'm excited to get to this. Also, this author is Bolivian, and I don't read a lot from Bolivian authors, so that is definitely another contributing factor in why I wanted to pick it up. So we will see about Fresh Dirt from the Grave. Okay, so now we do the thing where I go through all of the books that I have not read and I pick one to put on my TBR for next month. So this will be going on my July TBR, and it is a must read for my July TBR. So I have only read 2 of the books in this book called Revisit, which is not great. It's one of my worst showings on these revisits. So here are all the books that I have not read. Now, I have said multiple times in this video alone, I'm not in my short story essay collection game. And a lot of these are that. So all 4 of these are essays or short story collections. So these I think I need to immediately kind of like just take out of the running. I don't think they're gonna be a good fit for me right now. So that leaves these 4 for us. So if you were to pick between these 4, what do you think you would pick here? I think what I'm going to do is, I think my pick is going to be Vagina Obscura. Mostly because of 2 things. One, I'm actively trying to read a lot more of the nonfiction off of my shelves, like I said earlier, because those shelves are just overflowing. So I'm trying to read at least 1 a month, if not more. And I don't think, as I think about my July TBR so far, that there's any nonfiction on it. So this should probably be the one that I pick for that reason alone. But also, I haven't talked about this yet on the channel. My library has been going through it in a number of ways. But they did release a policy maybe like about 4 weeks ago now, where the amount of holds that you could have on materials went down from 25 to 10, which is a huge jump. And I had actively 25 holds at a time all the time. And that was a big change for me. So I've been slowly reading through every hold that I have at the library to get it down to 10. I'm finally at 10, but I do want to start placing new holds on new books. So this is one of the ones that I still have a hold on. So getting this off of my library hold shelf for the audiobook, because that's how I'm going to consume this, because the font is teeny fucking tiny on this. So I think I need to do the audiobook. So that would also get it off my library holds, and I could finally place a hold on something new. So I think this is the smart pick for me. But what I'm going to do, which is something crazy, is I think this might be a haul where I do a secondary pick. And for the reason I just listed, that I'm trying to get through my library holds, the other book on here that I have had the audiobook on hold for is Venomous Lumpsucker. And this would also free up another spot for me to be able to put a hold on something else. Because sometimes the holds at my library for a given book are like 3 months long. So that's like 3 months that book just is sitting there taking up a hold spot. So being able to get another one off, I think would be good. So this is my main pick, the one that I have to read. This is my secondary pick, so I don't technically have to read it. It's not going to be a fail if I don't read it, but I want to try and get to this one as well. So here we have it, the 2 that I will be taking off of this revisit and putting on my TBR. And yeah, that is the end of this video. Please let me know if you have read any of these books and what you thought about them, or if you're interested in reading any of these. I would love to know, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.